Get to know our exhibiting artists ahead of the Affordable Art Fair this March. Meet the Artists, a mini-series with me, Joanna Milne. I'm here speaking with Darren Murrell, an artist from Sussex. And I first came across your work just a few months ago on Instagram, and we started chatting. But I first saw your wildlife page, and I actually had to check if it was illustration or photography because the detail was incredible. I was just blown away by it. And then I came across two other pages that you have, a watercolor page and contemporary landscapes, seascapes, cityscapes, portraits. So you have this incredible versatility and just seem to be able to paint anything. And you work in all sorts of different mediums, pencil, charcoal, acrylic, oils. I mean, what I want to know is, where did it all start? I'm assuming you received a formal education, but I don't know. Are you self-taught? Just tell us a little bit more.
I didn't actually go to study art. I started probably when I was 3 or 4 years old. I think my first published commissions were when I was about 15. And then I was also commissioned to paint murals, pretty much sort of graffiti art, things like that. Again, when I was 15. Um, and I mean, there wasn't a lot of children's TV back when I was young. So our winters, we just used to spend drawing or creating, playing music. And that's the two things that I've always done, music and painting.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I could ever decide on one particular subject or style. Um, I get inspired by so much, so many different artists, and it changes all the time.
Mm.
But yeah, I did um, get into a course when was about 19, I think. But I knew some wildlife illustrators at that time, and I was basically making tea for them while they were working. Then they had a ridiculous deadline and said, "I don't suppose you can do any of um, painting or drawing, can you?" So I did. I started with the rough sketches for them, which they were giving to the client, who liked my sketches so much. Apparently, he framed them. They were only meant to be roughs, but he put them up. And then I started painting with them. And that was the same time that I'd been accepted on a course, but um, I was already working professionally. So I probably should have done that course, but I didn't.
Right.
Um, and then I got signed by the Wildlife Art Agency for, I think I only did one or two commissions for them. Um, but just carried on doing a lot of illustration work. And I think that's probably why I still don't stick to one particular style or medium, is because I approach it like illustrating. And I enjoyed illustrating because of you get so many different types of jobs and even design work as well. So yeah, never really stuck to one thing. I'm still learning.
Wow. It honestly doesn't look like you're still learning. It really doesn't. It's incredible. I was going to say to you, can you talk to us about how your painting process?
Yeah, again, because there's so many different styles that I do,
Mm.
there's, well, I suppose it's not a wide range of process that I have, but um, with, yeah, I like mixed media quite a lot. Because I love drawing. Drawing is my probably my main thing because that's what I used to do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Uh, went a long time before I could paint. Um, and it's nice if you can kind of mix that with what you're doing. If it's something that has to be detailed. But yeah, I mean, it can be that I will start with the drawing part. Um, Acrylics are normally what I've used, although recently I've really enjoyed using water mixable oils.
Hmm.
I've never really done oils before because of the drying time. If
Yeah.
I have an injection, I can't send that off to be do whatever they want to do with it while it's still wet.
Yeah.
And been a bit of a problem recently as well. Um, I started doing some of these landscapes with water bit mixable oils. I'm using those because I can paint with those anywhere. I don't have to have terps and whatever else. Um, you can just, yeah, sit at a table using like acrylics. Um, but yeah, I had to, because they just weren't drying and my framer needed paintings. So I had to switch to acrylic.
Right.
But what I was doing before though was acrylic, using acrylic inks actually as the sort of base um, to these ones. And then I was painting, well, I was putting a layer of transparent gesso on top. But
Hmm.
then the water mixable oils on top of that. Um, which yeah, that's been quite good. I mean, you might think, why am I using two types of paint there? But it's because when I use acrylics, I can use airbrush or things like that, which will give me brilliant light areas.
Hmm.
Which give a guide really as to where I want to have the light coming from. Um, but then I like to have more expressive brush strokes, and the water mixable oils are really good for that because they're not going to dry so quickly, and you can blend them and you can put big fat brush strokes in.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it seems to have worked with the sort of semi-abstract impressionistic landscape paintings. It does quite well for that. With other stuff, yeah, it's just I don't know, it's watercolors with pastel I do for illustrating, um, charcoal and pencil for portraits. Um,
But I mean, watercolors behave so differently, don't they? To because I'm used to working in acrylics, and I do, I do struggle with watercolor because it's so unforgiving. Because of its transparency, I suppose it's difficult to correct and fix paintings when you paint in watercolor. But you just seem to be able to work with everything. Like looking at your work, it doesn't look like one's more inferior than the other. Like it would be very hard to determine which one you do the most. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're all kind of in line. They're so good. Like they really are.
um, the thing is with that, most of them go in the bin.
Which, when you said that to me, I just thought, no.
But
I
they
don't,
just don't work and they look horrendous, especially if I'm doing those watercolors, because you can't really fix them. You
no.
have with the happy mistakes. Well, sounds a bit like Bob Ross, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. We all love Bob Ross.
Um, no, it's you, sometimes you're lucky and it will work and it sort of comes out all right. Most of the time it doesn't with watercolor.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, with the acrylics, I can correct it.
mm.
Uh, the water mixable oils, usually I can correct it. Sometimes they go horrendously wrong, and apart from painting over it and starting again,
Yeah.
um, then no, I can't. So yeah, yeah, it's. I don't know. I like I said before, I get obsessed with certain styles and artists, media, whatever it is, depending on how I'm feeling, and I will do that for long periods. Um, and then it's not that I get bored with stuff. I just get inspired by something else and want to try something else. I
Yeah.
find it to stick to one style and one thing. Um, unless something gets, is particularly doing well, then I would tend to stick with that a little more and explore that more. But yeah, you never know. I mean, I was part of a artist collective gallery for a while, and that was interesting because we used to take it in turns to do the duty. So
Hmm.
you hear what people were saying about your paintings. They didn't know who painted what.
Yeah.
They, quite often they just thought that you're, the shop assistant or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Uh, so with the really detailed wildlife stuff, people would come in and think, well, that's a photo, or that's a photo that's been changed digitally or something.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, how can I make it less like that? Um, I used to love to draw like that. When I was a kid, I wanted everything to look photographic.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I think that's a fascination that a lot of kids have when they learn, well, when they start drawing. They
Yeah.
want something real, and
Yeah.
I did. And I love photorealism and things like that, and wanted to push that as far as I could. But I think as I've got older, it's become more. Um, when I see people walking past my pictures because they think it's photography, and I have to tell them, no, that's a painting, then they'll go back and have a look. Um, and I like it when I could be a bit more expressive now,
Yeah.
which is really, really difficult after doing very detailed work for so
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
especially wildlife. I can remember when we used to do illustrations, um, it would be for zoologists and things like that to check over. And if
Mm.
it was exactly like a photo, they would say, "Oh no, the shoulders on that are wrong, or this bit's wrong. Can you change that?" And so they didn't. It didn't leave any room to do anything else, but just render from photographs,
Yeah.
uh, lots and lots of detail, and it became more like a. It's more like a craft than an art because it's just down to the process rather than giving something with any kind of expression. So it's really nice to do the opposite and try and loosen up and try um, do something very different. But
Yeah.
it's not easy to do that
Yeah. Do
because
you think that do you think that kind of triggered a perfectionism in you that because I feel that that comes across since I've spoken to you. I mean, a lot of artists are very self-critical, but do you think that kind of made it more so the fact that you're saying, they were saying, oh, the shoulders aren't quite right, and there was that exact, it had to be so exact. Do you think
Mm.
that influenced your work because of that? Your other pieces of work?
Yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it has. Also, even just when you do anything that you're trying to make realistic, that style, um, yeah, you become very obsessive over every little thing. I've worked on paintings that have taken months and months, working every day on it for hours, and you become obsessed with every little brushstroke, and every one has to be smooth and perfect. Um, and you forget about the picture as a whole, standing back and looking at it.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
was going
it,
to say to you, is there a out of everything that you do, is there now, if you could do anything, what would be the subject matter that you would choose and the medium that you would do it in? If it was nothing to do with being paid or, a work, what would you sit and do freely?
um, mm, mm, Again, that changes quite a lot. I do like doing these semi-abstract landscapes because I've always liked landscape painting as well as portraits. Um, but every time, if I've tried to do that in a realistic way, you start seeing too much, and
Mm,
it's overwhelming that you're going to take a year to paint one thing,
mm,
and then all you're going to end up with is something that looks like a photo. You think, what was the point? Um, so I just like capturing light, really, in whatever I'm doing, a sense of brilliant light coming through, like dawn or dusk times, and and just not worrying about detail or form or anything with that. Having some movement, perhaps, and color. Um, but that's fun. I do like that. I still love doing portraits as well. Yeah.
yeah. What would you say has been the most rewarding experience so far in your career?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I think it's probably when I've taught other people, which I don't do a lot of teaching, but reactions from people thinking that looking at something, say, I could never do that. And even the most difficult, detailed looking picture is just a matter of little techniques and building things up.
Mm,
And anybody can do it.
yeah,
Um, if you've got enough time and patience, you can do anything.
yeah.
But that's down to. So yeah, reactions. Um, I've heard from people, kids that I've taught years ago that struggled with school and stuff like that. And I didn't teach at school; I taught privately, but um, I was told that it gave them confidence, and they went on to do better in other subjects because of that.
Okay.
I don't. That's entirely true or not, but that's quite a good thing if it changes somebody's um, like their confidence and way of learning, so they can be better at everything else just
Yeah,
through.
yeah,
But
that's interesting. Um, what I wanted to know was what kind of challenges do you think there are being an artist? There's so many things. I mean, it can be anything, whether you're self-critical, whether it's procrastination, starting a new piece. Um, Nowadays, it's keeping up with socials, which can be a real grind because some people spend an awful lot of time and energy doing that. But then there's less time creating. So what would you say is the most challenging part of being an artist, or one of them?
well, it's definitely all of those. The business side of it is a nightmare. Self-promotion, all of that. I hate that. I'd rather be sitting painting, not have to worry about selling anything. I think that the worst thing is putting a price on anything.
Yeah.
Mm, That I find almost impossible. I could, if I do it as an illustration, then that's fine because fixed prices and you kind of know where you are. But I can remember, I don't know, I think it was during lockdown, um, somebody suggested to me, because I like old classic cars, and I've got an old American car myself, but somebody said, oh, you have to paint some of those for the car groups. I
Hmm.
think that spend 70,000 on a car. So I thought, okay, I'll paint some of those. And really went down well. I had loads and loads of messages from these car collectors saying, would I paint them a car? But once they found out that it was going to be more than £50, they said, oh, I didn't think it was going to be that much. I'll have to think about it. Uh, and the funny thing is, I had some people say to me, I don't know how you do that painting. That's amazing. I can't think how you can possibly do that. How much do you sell it for? And then I'd say a price, and they'd say, well, I didn't think it was going to be that much. Um, and I'd say, well, it's taken a couple of weeks to do this, or maybe longer than that, maybe a month. And then they would say, well, I didn't think it would take that long. And think, hold on a minute, you just told me 5 minutes. You didn't know, but now you know how long it takes.
Such a
So
strange
yeah,
world, isn't it?
it's that kind of thing is a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's really difficult when somebody says how much, because if it's not coming from a gallery or an art collector or somebody that's commissioned on a specific price or something, then it's always difficult because people just don't seem to have a clue what goes into
No,
painting.
no.
And and not just that. I mean, it's I bought some tubes of paint this week. Um, they're acrylics, the ones that have got I can't remember what they're called now. Um, they've got a bit more thicker body to them, so you can get a bit more texture in it. They're £10 to £13 a tube.
Yeah,
So you can spend out, you know, £50 to £100 on equipment to do a painting.
yeah. I think that's what people, I mean, why would they know that? But it's, you
Yeah,
spend an absolute fortune in materials. It's,
I,
and people do forget that, but
yeah, yeah.
it's such a tricky thing.
I think I've sold paintings that have gone for thousands, and I've sold some which may have gone for 50 quid. Um, it's everything in between.
Yeah,
That there seems to be like a finite amount in this area as to what you can get through local galleries. But it's a shame because sometimes it can affect what you're painting, um, what size you're going to work on, how long you're going to spend on it.
yeah,
Usually, I will just ignore that and just paint and end up spending far too long on something, um, spending a lot on framing and everything else, and then not making much out of it at all.
yeah,
But yeah, that definitely is the worst part of it,
yeah,
because nothing is fixed, and it's and trying to convince people that it's not just a hobby.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
how it's like you say, music as well, because it's something that people just assume you're doing that because you enjoy that. That's something that people do when they just want to have fun,
yeah,
which is true. You do have fun with it, but there's to get to a certain level, you have to put years and years worth of practice and practice and practice. It's I don't really believe in talent. I think it is down to the amount of time you spend doing something, how good you get at it.
a whole practice makes perfect.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. It's the idea that I don't know how you do that. You're so talented. Well, it's the amount of hours and years that I've spent doing it.
mm.
That's what all it comes down to.
Yeah. We're going off at a tangent, but it's great. I love it. I could speak to you all day. You've covered so many questions that I actually don't need to ask half of them. But one thing I wanted to say was ask you rather was many people say that art is incomplete until others experience it, what you've done or what you've created. So until they feel it, that we are incomplete as artists. Um, until we kind of make that connection with somebody who connects with your work. So, what do you hope people feel when they view your art?
Um, hmm. To be honest, I when I'm painting, that's not on my mind. Um, it's I like that afterwards. And somebody can connect and they see what I was trying to get at with it. But it's if it's a landscape, then yeah, it's just my experience of what I saw, if they can feel some of that, then that that's going to be a good communication. But it's not my priority.
No, no.
Um, yeah, mine is to kind of capture what I felt at that time for myself.
Yeah.
That does come across, then that's great. If it doesn't, but I still feel it, then I don't really care, to be honest.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's fair enough.
yeah, it's a difficult one, and I mean, I just lose myself when I'm painting,
Yeah.
really thinking about what I'm trying to get across to anybody else.
Yeah.
But but it's nice when it does, obviously,
Yeah.
when some emotional reaction to it,
Yeah.
and that's happened a few times, and that's yeah, that can be quite overwhelming and makes you think, yeah, that was worthwhile.
Yeah. I find it so fascinating speaking with you. So we're taking some of your work to the Affordable Art Fair. Um, and I'm very excited to see it in the flesh and to meet you in the flesh would be great too. Um, yeah, just thank you so much for your time today. And I really look forward to working with you.
Me too. Yeah, it's amazing. I think that is the best part of doing stuff like this. The best part of painting, I think, are the connections that you make with other people. I know I'm saying that I don't care what anybody thinks of my work um, when I'm doing it, but
Yeah,
the um, that's the most powerful thing with it. The people you meet, other artists, people that buy it.
absolutely.
I've made so many connections that yeah, it, that's the most important thing for me.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you.